What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Words from the Nerds podcast. My name is Charlie, aka Cubson, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Aiden H Talks, aka Aiden. How are we doing tonight, brother, man?
Doing good, baby. Coming off an amazing episode. Probably my favorite.
Yeah,
Just to give you all a little tease,
yeah,
my absolute favorite of the season so far. It had everything you could hope for, and I am so excited to talk about it. So I am doing fantastic.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. Some people think that it's like third best. I think those people are crazy, but that's okay. That's fine. Um, yeah, this is a fantastic episode. I've been saying since it aired that I feel like this was The Last of Us in a down to a T. And if someone didn't know what The Last of Us was, like I would show them this episode of TV. And it's like it covers everything that I think The Last of Us embodies. And so I was completely enamored with this episode. I loved it so much. But I want to get out right off the bat and say thank you guys again, seriously, for tuning in each week. We appreciate it so much. Our our most one of our episodes is really just like blown up, and like it's crazy.
245 views.
Seriously,
How did
thank
that
you guys.
happen?
Thank you guys so much, man. No, but seriously, we appreciate you guys watching all of our stuff. I know we just uploaded last week's pretty late in the week, considering this episode that we're about to talk about came out on Friday. But still, that one, I think that one's at like,
Yeah, that one. So the thing about that one is I had completely messed up the upload. And so I had uploaded it and then went to sleep. So all while I was asleep, it was uploading. And then the next day I found out that I accidentally posted the audio version, which had a very copyrighted song on there. And so it got no views. So I had to come home, I had to change it and edit out that part. And once I edited that part out, I re-uploaded it. But I think that it kind of just stunted the views. And so it hasn't really gone anywhere. So that one, and it looks so weird because the one before that did so great, and then that one's like 4 views, and so it looks all weird. That's my
well,
fault.
episode 3 did have a lot of conversation around it. Excuse me. Have a lot of conversation around it. So I think that makes sense. And episode 4 was kind of, I think we all agree, was the weakest of the show so far. But like I had hoped for, off of episode 4 last week, that episode 5 would bring it home, and it did it in so many different ways. But again, thank you guys for everything. We appreciate you guys. Just want to say right here at the beginning, if you appreciate our voices, you like watching our faces talk about all the stuff that you like as well, drop a sub. If you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell, hit the like button too. Help spread the stuff around. Shows YouTube that you like what you're watching, and they'll want to put us out some more. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any sort of other podcast listening platform where you don't get to see our wonderful faces, Aiden's gone, our wonderful faces, then just drop us a good rating. We're good for it. Drop us a good rating. But diving straight in, non-spoiler thoughts. Obviously, like I said, this is, I feel like, the greatest showcase of what The Last of Us is and can be. But beyond that, I think character-wise, this was really, really well done, especially for giving us characters that, if you haven't played the game, that you're just now meeting. I love how they nope, that was almost a spoiler for the episode. I love what they did with these two characters, and the way they make you feel for each of them before sort of trying to dive deeper into the actual story at hand, because they know what they have to handle with this episode. And so they wanted us to connect as much as we could before that were to happen. So really, really thankful for that. The Joel and Ellie stuff this episode, it's a lot more subtle than last week's, I would say, but it's definitely still there. And it's ever present. I'd say probably towards the end of the end of the episode, and we'll get there. Trust us. But it wasn't as in your face as before, but it's still there, and will, I think the ramifications from this week are going to show itself more even next week, and we'll talk about that as well. But yeah, I loved it so much. I thought the hunters, they fleshed them out a lot more like I had hoped they would, especially the leader, Kathleen. Um, Still don't think Perry got too much to do. Perry, the guy who played Tommy in the video game, don't think he had too much to do, but they did give him more characterization as to what he likes, what why he is following Kathleen and everything like that. And so, great stuff, great stuff.
Yeah, I could very much appreciate how much they fleshed them out a bit more, and then especially Kathleen, she ended up coming back around on me, and I really enjoyed her performance. I like how she's more of like has a mellow demeanor. It kind of makes her more like scary and intimidating, where she just calmly just tells you what she's going to do to you, how she's going to get information out of you. And so characters like that, they really came around on me. I love the Hunter's character development. And then our main characters in this episode, um, solely in this episode, and then Joel and Ellie, it was just all around very, very well done. The character development, the characterization, the action, the emotion. There wasn't one thing I could find wrong with this episode. And this truly is The Last of Us. This is what you're going to get when you load up the game, and this is what you're going to get not only in this episode and not only this far into the season, but even in these next 4 episodes, and we still have all that stuff to come. So I feel like this was such a good episode, to kind of just sum up our journey so far and where we still have to go.
Agreed. Um, yeah, we loved it. Essentially, for our non-spoiler section, that is it. So if you have not seen the episode for whatever reason, go watch it and then come back and listen to the rest of this. Three, two, one. What I wanted to mention was Henry and Sam at the beginning of the episode, opening with them. Granted, it didn't exactly open with them right away. It was more just Kansas City as a whole, and I loved that as well. That we got to see sort of right after they took over Fedra, and or took
Yeah.
them down rather than taking them over. And I like that just because it gave us more of an idea of just how bad it was for the hunters, and understanding them even more, and giving, like Aiden mentioned, characterization, giving them more of that sort of thing. And obviously they touch on it later in the episode as well, with Henry mentioning to Joel that all the rumors Joel heard about the Kansas City Fedra quarantine zone were were true, and they were pretty horrible people. But opening with Sam and Henry, I think did this episode, especially for the end of it, did it such a great service. And focusing on this, I'm jumping around 1,000 miles a minute, but Neil Druckmann has mentioned, I don't remember if it was at the end of this episode in the recap, or if it was on the podcast. He's mentioned multiple times that part of the thing that they can do with the show that they weren't able to do with the game is they can leave Ellie and Joel and focus on other characters. And I think they did that expertly with Henry and Sam here, getting to show us just how much Henry wants to protect Sam. And they show us even more later throughout the episode when we find out that Sam has leukemia, and what Henry was willing to do to get medication to help with Sam's leukemia. And getting to see that brotherly bond at the beginning of the episode, um, not strengthen, but feel like you're sitting in and becoming a part of it, is crucial for this episode and where those two characters go. And I think they nailed it. I think they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, it was great that we got to kind of look more at Henry and Sam and like, their backstory, because it makes that moment at the end hit way, way harder. And it also gives us, why does Henry have this orange stuff painted on his eyes, or why are they running in the first place? And instead of just finding that out through dialogue between two characters, we actually see it all play out. And that is so crucial, especially for like a TV show. Like in a video game, you can kind of get away with it. But yeah, for a TV show or like for a movie, to flesh these characters out with all of the time you're given, that whole hour, hour, 10 minutes that you're given, goes a long, long way in terms of storytelling and in terms of getting that emotion out of you at the very end of the episode. And I think they did it all perfectly, in my opinion. Because, I mean, by the end of it, I was in tears. I didn't know what to do. I turned the episode off and I was just sitting there like, that was amazing, telling everybody about it. And anybody that could listen about how great that they've been doing and how great that they did with that episode in particular. And even episodes like 1 and 3 that just right out the gate, boom, hit you in the mouth, and you just kind of go on this
Yeah.
journey. And by the end of it, you're just sitting there like, whew, man. And so I think this episode encapsulated all of that so well.
Yeah. Honestly, this episode had me crying, excuse me, at the beginning, towards the beginning. And granted, it might be because I played the game and I know where these characters end up, but when they get up into the attic and after Henry is turned off sort of survival mode for a second, he turns over to Sam. He's like, "Hey, this place looks pretty ugly," or something like that. He signs to him and says that and gives him a bunch of crayons and they start coloring on the walls. Bro, I started tearing up. I was like, "Oh my god, man, this is so heartwarming. This is
Yeah.
it's heartwarming and I love it, but I just know where it's gonna go and it just ripped it away." But I
Yeah.
also love how fast we got to Joel and Ellie and how they snuck up on Joel and Ellie because it didn't seem like we overstayed our welcome with watching Sam and Henry in the attic or anything like that. And once they leave the attic, oh, and I guess and watch Joel kill all those dudes, then it pretty much jumps to nighttime and we're back with Joel and Ellie. So I think the pacing of this episode as well needs to be talked about, and I think that was just a small showcase of how good it is and how it wants to. It keeps the ball rolling without you feeling like it's dragging at all.
Yeah. Like I said, we started off with like their backstory. We fleshed it all out. We get what we need, and then we're right back out of there, pushing the story along. And I
Yeah,
think that's great. It Something like that would work with Bill and Frank, and like everything that they did, everything with their like episode. And I think it's okay that early on in the season, and it's okay for like that situation in particular. This one, you need more of that like journey with all four of them. So you
yeah,
can't really spend all that time and then kind of rush the ending. So it's nice that they can just bounce around like that. They can bounce around. All right, Bill and Frank, we're going to spend the whole episode. Henry and Sam, we're going to spend like the first fourth of the episode. And then the rest of it, we're going to do everything that we need to do to make that moment at the end stick with people and make them want to come back next week. And
yeah.
so yeah, like I said, I can't say it enough. They're doing a phenomenal job with everything in terms of like setting stories up, telling these stories, and moving the story along, throughout all these past 5 episodes.
Yeah. I love the line here. I was just looking at it when they're pointing the guns at Joel and Ellie still. And he's like, "We didn't hurt you, so you don't hurt us, right? That's how it works." And then Joel says, "Yeah, that's right." But he says it in an asshole tone. And he's like, "See, what the fuck is that tone, man?" Ellie's just like, he has an asshole voice. That's just how he is. I
Yeah.
love that. That's like I mean, that's not so relationship building, which is what I almost said with Joel and Ellie, but I mean, it shows that they're, more comfortable with each other, I guess.
Yeah.
That's just how he is. He's an asshole voice. He has an asshole voice. And
Yeah.
so,
One thing, dude, that was sticking out to me, bro. The actor, I believe his name's Lamar Johnson. The
mhm,
actor for Henry, he just like that is perfect casting. Like that is perfect casting because he just
agreed.
has like these like the look on his face or like these eyes to where he just looks like he could never hurt anybody. And he even tells Joel like the closest I ever got to killing someone was pointing an unloaded gun at your face. And it just like it makes sense. And he just walks around and he's like kind of cracking these jokes and he's real like optimistic,
Yeah.
but you can see that all just by the look on his face and just by looking at like his eyes. You can just tell that he's a kind soul.
Yeah.
And that is perfect casting right there because that's exactly who Henry is. Like Henry's not going to go out there and just he's not Joel. He's not Joel. And yet
Yeah.
he's in the same role that Joel is in protecting this little kid. And So he doesn't have those defenses. He doesn't have the grit that Joel has, and you can tell all of that just by looking at him. And I think that Lamar Johnson, he, I he said I said this earlier. He encapsulated that so well. You know, just by one look, even before we heard him talk, even before we saw him tell Joel about the plan or start talking to Joel and Ellie, you could just tell right off the bat, and that's what makes it sting even harder later. I'm gonna keep saying that, but I one thing I just couldn't get over was like the way they set up towards this painful ending because I think it was all done so well.
I couldn't agree more, especially with the point of Lamar Johnson. I think he does a fantastic job, and he helps add that sort of levity to all the situations. Like just the whole time when he's like, "See, my plan worked. I told y'all. Like we should have like we you shouldn't have stressed out so hard and all that sort of thing." And so it it's great to see that, and he does a fantastic job of playing that, and then to see that sort of change, not sort of change, I guess, but change drastically to the end of the episode. Even when he's like talking to Kathleen towards the end, it's I don't know, it makes for a much better and more tense moment and situation. Um, I love how quick the whole nighttime thing was too, and how quick they kind of got over their animosity, their quote unquote animosity. Um, it was just like a quick little conversation, and then they started eating together, and then it was the next morning they were planning a way to get out. And just again, it's like the pacing of this episode is really really well done. I also just love this entire scene in general. When they're up at the top floor of the building talking about a way out, because we get a lot more world building. Um, as we mentioned from Henry, he talks about how bad the Fedra um, soldiers in QZ was in this area,
Yeah,
and how he was an informer. And then Joel's like, I don't work with rats and that kind of thing. And it was honestly just such a great moment, not moment, but the whole scene in general. And then watching, I love how they tap on the table. Also, that's we just completely glossed over the fact that Sam is deaf now. Excuse
oh
me,
yeah, yeah.
Sam is deaf now, and that was such a good warranted change from the game. That works. I talked about it in my TikTok that worked so well for giving Henry even more character and more um, of a protective role, because he has to do more than just keep Sam alive. He has to keep him alive in a lot more cautious way.
Yeah,
And
and communicate with him.
yeah, exactly. It's like, and you saw a little bit of it when they were trying to walk up on Joel and Ellie and walking on the glass. Um, Sam signed to him, is like, "Is it loud?" And then he's like, "Yeah, it's loud." And that was just a perfect moment, like, because those are the kind of questions you have. You're like, it's the perfect way they set that up with Joel leaving like a sound trap, and then they're showing us how, because there's sound traps all over the world technically in this world with clickers and stuff. And so they're showing us how Henry and Sam would sort of operate that sort of thing, assuming that they might have had to before, or maybe they didn't. I don't know how long they've been in this Kansas City area, because I know they said that the Federal soldiers shoved all the infected down underground, which is another thing they point out in this scene at the top. I
Hmm.
also love that as well, because that calls back to last week's episode where I mentioned, like, how do they know what that hole that's coming, that's like pulsating in the ground is? And so that answered that question perfectly.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I love. I think that's what one of the things I love the most is, like, I'm left with these questions and I'm getting the answers. Not necessarily that I am getting the answers that I wanted, but I don't mean that in a way of like, I wish it was this instead of, like, I wish it was something cooler. Like, that was, I think that's actually a really realistic thing that I mean, I don't know how Fedra would have done something like that, but I mean, hey, good for them for actually, I mean, maybe not, because they created a bloater, but uh,
Well, honestly, it backfired on them completely.
yeah.
Well, Fedra, okay, let me take it back because I actually wanted to touch on this. I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, you're good.
I'm because I'm sitting here trying to be like, well, it backfired on them. Well, it backfired on them. They did such a good job at showing like, yeah, these hunters are just like taking over this city and they're just like ruthless. But let's take a look back at what Fedra did to them and all the bad things that Fedra was doing. And in a zombie apocalypse, sometimes I've heard this thrown around a couple times, but in the zombie apocalypse, sometimes the scariest thing isn't the zombies; it's people that don't have anything to lose anymore. And that's what happened with Fedra. Doing all the horrible things they did to the people, they end up rioting, and Fedra pushed these bloaters down. These hunters come up on top. They start to be just ruthless and aggressors and just trying to take out anything they see. And then these bloaters that were caused from Fedra just come full circle. And it's just it's all a
That's
rotation
true.
between these three, the clickers, Fedra, and these hunters, all
Yeah.
these horrible people in Kansas. And so honestly, yeah, I mean, I was on the bloater side this episode. I was rooting for them.
One thing I also like too, because one of my questions is even just with the general game itself was why a 20-year time jump, from the point where we leave Joel and Sarah's death. Why specifically 20 years? That always just felt like I mean, it's not a weird number per se, but I always wondered the choice behind it. And thinking about it more, obviously it has to do with like different levels of infected, I assume, like clickers and bloaters and such. But also for this instance in this episode in the TV show, it worked for what they set up with the infected being trapped underground. And 20 years, if the roads aren't upkept and the tunnels aren't upkept, obviously there's going to be some erosion and some collapsing of tunnels, especially if you're crashing cars and exploding cars on
Yeah.
top of these tunnels. So it worked really well for the setup of that sort of thing, but it's completely passive, I guess, that sort of setup. It wasn't like intentional, I bet, but especially because they're just following the game. But I think it worked really well because it's believable and it's not like, well, why it's convenient that the ground would just collapse right then and there, like it's nothing like that. It makes total sense for where the world is at this place in time, at this point in time.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, so where did we leave off? We left off with them in the bit like kind of business building, game planning.
Them running down, I wanna say I didn't see this, but when they go to the bottom floor and they're running across the building, the inside of the building, um, the way Joel runs there for a second, um, I didn't even notice it to me, my girlfriend actually pointed it out, but he almost kinda looks like to me anyway, he runs like Joel in the game. He he runs kinda like
Yeah,
he does in
dude.
the game, like, if you're not holding L1, but you're just, like, pushing along, like
Jogging.
yeah, you're just doing a little jog, a light jog. It's kinda funny. I don't think that was
Yeah, he
intentional, I
does.
think that was just Pedro being Pedro, but
Dude.
'cause
Yeah.
I did think it was a weird moment for him to be doing that, like, lineman
Half
type jog
jog.
right then anyway, yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, "What are you doing, dog?" But, I mean, hey, that's, little tiny nods to the game if it's intentional at all.
Yeah.
Um But then they go down into the tunnels. I love this moment too, where he tells Ellie to get her gun out, and then she looks at she looks at all of them. She's like, "Yeah, damn right, I got a gun.
Well, it's
What
funny
y'all talking
too
about?"
because he told her, "Put the gun in the backpack. You're gonna shoot your ass off, right?" And so when he tells her to pull the gun out, she pulls it out of her pocket, and he kind of glares at her. And so she pulls it
Yeah.
out, and she looks at him, and he's just staring at her like, "What did I tell you to do with that gun? And you didn't listen." I thought it was so funny.
Yeah, he gives it. Yeah, he even shakes his head a little bit there.
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't even notice that. Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's such a funny moment because you can just tell he's like he sees her pull it out of her jacket, and he's like, "Ah, and she's just smiling at him. She's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "God, you got to be kidding me." I love that
Um,
little moment.
the next scene, obviously a lot more jokes. I want to say before I continue on, a lot funnier than I thought it would be. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of jokes that just come out of nowhere that I feel going into it, I feel like I would have known all of the jokes that they were going to play, like the magazine one from last episode and all this sort of thing. But this moment where they both say, "She's not my daughter, he's not my dad," or "I'm not her dad, he's not my dad," that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought that was funny. How quick they are both to answer and
yeah.
be like, no, 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 no. Don't get
I
it
will
twisted.
say I was fully expecting us to see them fight like the first stalkers down here in the tunnels, because like
Mm.
in the game, when you're walking through the sewers, that's what you do come across some stalkers. I was fully expecting it, and especially with how they set up with Henry talking about, okay, there might be one or two infected down there, but you would help me with that. Oh, that's also one of my favorite lines of the episode. I completely forgot to mention when Henry says, "I show the way, you clear it." I love that. I don't know
Mm.
why, like, because
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know,
and
because yeah, Henry, yeah, like Henry just
yeah.
doesn't. Yeah, Henry isn't like that, but he realizes that Joel is because he watched Joel do that sort of thing, and so
Hmm. Um, yeah, it all goes back to just like knowing your characters and knowing what roles they're gonna play and how to mesh them with each other. And so, yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. Um, and then we get into the little daycare, the little school.
I should have instantly known what this was right as soon as they walk up to the door that leads into it. But
Hmm.
for some reason, I sat there and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" In my head, like I was in awe. And it's moments like this where I feel like, "Oh man, I wish I." Well, actually, not exactly, because they didn't fully flesh out this ish stuff. But I was gonna say, I there are tons of moments still in this show where I'm like, I kind of wish I didn't play the game. I wish I
Hmm.
hadn't played the game, and this is how I was experiencing it,
Yeah,
because it's so fucking cool, most of it. But
yeah.
I didn't know what this was right away. But as soon as they walk inside, and I saw the on the back of the wall, there's a goalpost painted on there, a soccer goal painted on there. I was like, "Oh shit, this is the ish stuff that I
Hmm.
was hoping that they would do." And
Yeah, and they lightly touched on it, you know.
yeah, that's probably my biggest bummer of all of it, is that
Yeah,
they didn't get to flesh it out as much as I had hoped that they would get to. But
yeah,
it's I don't know. It's hard because like obviously they probably could have done a standalone ish episode kind of thing, but with them already doing that with Bill and Frank, I feel like that
yeah,
doing it again, especially only 2 episodes removed from episode 3, it would just seem kind of jarring when you want to get on with Joel and Ellie's story so much. And it's still a cool thing to see, and like you can appreciate it if you played the game. And I think that's what most of this turned into, is like if you played the game, you have an immense appreciation for this, and if you haven't, then you have all sorts of questions. And then if you want to play the game after all this, you'll get those questions answered for the most part, kind of. And so
yeah.
I think it works great in that way. But I also love that they actually stop here. Like I didn't think that they would stop and hang out here for a second. But
Yeah, and then I want to clear something up. So last week I said that Henry, because I hadn't rewatched the trailer or anything, or like I've rewatched it, but not really like paying attention. Um, I always thought he said you might not be her dad, but you mean something to her. I don't know why I always thought that's what he said. But he says you might not be her dad, but you were someone's, which honestly I love even more. So when it came
yeah,
up, I was like, oh, because I knew he was about to say it. I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, damn, I was not expecting that.
might
So
not be her father, but you were someone's. I could
yeah,
tell.
that's a mistake on my part. But yeah, and then he looks down at his watch and looks up at Ellie. Just beautiful
That entire
filmmaking.
conversation was fantastic. I
Yeah,
loved
well,
that whole thing.
okay. So I need to talk about this, dude, because this is something I've been thinking about all week, and I made a video on it. I don't know if you watched it. Um,
I don't watch your
oh, you
videos.
didn't? Oh, okay,
I don't
interesting.
watch your
Oh,
videos.
all right.
Yeah.
He's getting booted off. This is now an open invitation for anyone that wants to join. Anyway, so I really, really love this because after the episode, they always do these little sit downs, right, with like Neil Druckmann and Craig Mason, and I was watching the next week's on trailer, and it kind of spilled over into the like behind the scenes. And the first thing I hear is Neil Druckmann say, The purpose of Henry and Sam is to be a mirror image of Joel and Ellie, and it's to show Joel that there are other people out here in these protector roles. And keep in mind, we're coming off of Bill and Frank, where Bill quite literally told him, "We're on this planet to protect the ones we love," aka being Tess. But in this new reality, unfortunately, having to be Ellie in Joel's opinion.
Yeah.
We're coming off of the heels of that. We get to this episode. Henry and Sam are a mirror image of Joel and Ellie. The only thing is, Sam doesn't have that grit and bitterness in him that Joel does. So he can't just kick everyone's ass like Joel can. So we get to this part, and then Henry tells him that the reason the hunters are after him is because in order to get medicine to protect his little brother and his leukemia, he had to turn in the leader of the hunters, which just so happened to be Kathleen's brother.
Yeah.
So he tells Joel, and I love this line so much. He tells Joel, "So what? Am I a bad guy now because I did a bad thing?" And Joel just kind of sits there, and he's like, and you can see it in Joel's head where I would like to believe Joel is thinking, "No, you're not, because you had to protect someone that you loved." And Joel even
Yeah.
apologizes and says, "Hey, look, I didn't know about
That
your
you did it for
situation.
yeah.
I'm sorry for calling you a rat." And that moment right there is just, oh, am I a bad guy because I did a bad thing to protect my little brother, essentially, is just so good. And
Yeah.
that is something that I know is going to come up again later, because we've played the game, we know what happens, and I know that episode 3 and everything in there is also going to impact things that happen later. And it's just all these little bits sprinkled out. And also, simultaneously, while that's going on, Joel and Ellie are getting closer and closer. Why do you think that is? Because it's resonating with him, and they're fleshing it out so well. And that's one of the reasons why I absolutely adored this episode and episode 3 the most, because I love that character building. I love seeing these things resonate with Joel. I love seeing Joel kind of start to understand and have all these things click. Now he's not so much of a hard ass on her. He's laughing at her jokes. He's sniping clickers to protect her and make sure she's okay. And I love that scene right there so much. That scene and the scene where Ellie's reading the letter off to Joel, I think are two of the most important scenes we've gotten in this show so far. And once the show's over, people will go back and realize that. But us right now, it's so nice that we get to appreciate it as soon as it happens. Because while I was sitting there and I heard Henry say that to him, it like right here, bro, right in the heart. I love that scene so much, man.
Yeah, I agree. I love just listening to Henry talk about it and how he tortures himself over it. Like he knows it was a shitty thing to do, but like it was for his brother, and
Yeah.
he needed to do it, and because he loves his brother, and so again, like you mentioning, like what everything this is leading up to, and how this is all going to make sense towards the end. I can't wait for to hear people who have no idea about it all. I just want to hear
Mm-hmm.
their thoughts on it. So, um,
Yeah.
I even down to where he at the beginning of the conversation, Henry is talking about Kathleen's brother and saying how great of a man he was, and and mentions to Joel, "I'm sure you know a great man as well, like a really noble man or whatever." And Joel
Mm-hmm.
stops and thinks about it for a second. I can't imagine, for some reason, I couldn't imagine who he's thinking of
I
when
was
he
under
turns
the
over.
impression of Tommy, but
Yeah,
I
that's the only
don't
thing I can think.
know.
But like
Yeah, but even
he
then,
always
that's
he
kind
was
of like,
talking shit on Tommy last episode
yeah,
too. So it's like I don't know who he thinks was a
yeah,
great man in his life, but um
yeah. I couldn't
because
think
he
of
definitely
anything.
looked away as if he was thinking of someone, but I don't
Yeah.
know. Um, great scene. But we continue on, and they get out of the tunnels. Actually, no, sorry. The scene, the next scene is actually what I appreciated the most when it came to the Hunters storyline. Actually, not the most, the second most, because it finally gave us more for Melanie Linsky, Kathleen to do, and
Hmm.
it was this whole conversation inside her childhood room with Perry. And this scene also gives us more insight on Perry, the insight that I was talking about a little bit earlier. But also, this scene is a lovely call, not a callback, I guess, but like a reference sort of to part two, Last of Us Part Two. And I won't go into that part of it until we get to our spoiler section at the end of this. But uh, great stuff. There's also another reference later on to part two stuff,
Oh,
still involving Kathleen that I
oh, okay,
will.
okay.
Are you
I thought
thinking
you
of
were
something
talking
else?
about. Yeah, well, it's pretty. I mean, you
We'll
made a
talk
video
about
about it.
we
Yeah,
we could talk about when we get there. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but in this scene specifically, I love this is where Melanie Linsky got to show her acting chops as well, talking about her
Mhm,
brother, and I love how she says like, I know what you're gonna say. I know that he would want me to forgive and want me to move on. Um, and she's like, I think she says no. What kind of justice is that, or something like that, something to that effect.
mhm.
Um, and I love that because you're sitting there and you want her to say that. You want her to agree with what she's saying she's not going to agree with, and you're sitting there and you're thinking Perry's going to try to talk her down because, and she kind of reinstates that idea as well, that Perry is going to try to tell her to forgive. But then I love this, and this is what gives Perry that characterization. He says, listen, your brother was a great man, we all loved him, but he didn't get anything done. You did. We're with you. And so
Yeah,
that's just that. I love that so fucking much because even it shows also that like it's not so black and white, because Henry talked about how great of a man he was. Kathleen's talking about how great of a man he was. But then Perry sitting here like he was a great man. He did great things, sure, but he didn't help us like you did. Like he didn't
yeah,
have everything that it took to get us to where we are because of you. And so we're following you. And so it shows that like you can't be all good and all bad, and or vice versa. You can't be all good and vice versa to necessarily get to whatever goal you're trying to get to.
yeah,
You have to be able to do the hard things sometimes. But I don't know. I love this scene all around. This really, because I like I said last episode, I was really iffy on Melanie Linsky, but this scene made me appreciate her a lot more.
yeah. I also saw someone talking about how the show is kind of setting stuff up for season two, arcs for certain characters, wink, wink,
Yeah.
and arcs that people were saying that weren't there in the first game, and I feel like I don't want to say I feel like they're learning from that because, um, what the fans say isn't gospel, but
Yeah.
they definitely are sprinkling those bits of, pieces for The Last of Us Part Two, and we'll touch on that later. But I just wanted to say that as well with the whole like everything with Kathleen's character and everything with other characters. And so I just wanted to bring that up so we could talk about it later. But
Yeah.
yes, the Kathleen character did grow on me a lot this episode. I love that little piece of dialogue her and the Perry character shared right there.
Yeah.
And just goes to show like how ruthless she is, dude. And then she keeps this mellow demeanor. She never like laughs too hard or gets too angry. It's just mellowed out, and
Yeah.
that makes her so much more scarier.
I agree, actually. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think on the podcast, Craig and Neil talked about how she's sort of like the idea of like a kindergarten teacher trying to survive in this world. And like, a kindergarten teacher is like, she has to like keep her cool with these kids and try to like talk them down all the time. And that's sort of
Yeah,
like what she is right now. Like, just cold, like not cold and deadpan, but just straight, and you can tell she's trying to keep calm. I don't know.
yeah,
It is really, really well done, I think.
yeah,
But going forward, they get out of the tunnels, and then again, Henry's all up on his high horse. He's like, "Yo, I told y'all my plan was gonna work. This shit's awesome." For some reason, also, I totally forgot about the sniper section of the game, and I didn't even think they were gonna do that at all, and so I loved that they did this.
Oh, wow.
I don't know,
Wait. Are you talking about what sniper section where Joel and Ellie are up top sniping?
no, no, the section that's about to come up in the that we're about to talk about,
With
but
the hunters? Huh. I
yeah,
forgot
where
about
the
it too, shit.
yeah, where there's, like, a long cul-de-sac and then the sniper's at the end of the house. In the game, you have to, like there's, like,
Oh, wow.
15 other guys that come at you while you're trying to make your way to the house to go take down
Yeah,
this.
now that you're, like, explaining it, it sounds, like, kinda
Yeah.
familiar. I totally
I
forgot about it too.
I remember that sequence, but for some reason, I was completely forgetting that that was with Henry and Sam, and so when this was happening, I got really happy because I immediately remembered, but I just that the idea of them doing this section didn't even cross my mind. I was like, "There's no way." I had written it off because I was like, "There's no way they're gonna do anything like that." I love the way that they did this more though, obviously, just because it adds a lot more characterization to not only, the sniper himself, which we never even learn his name, so that doesn't really matter, um, but to Joel, more importantly, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we get there, and we're about to, but obviously, Henry is all hopped up and they start getting shot at. I love this little moment between, Joel and Ellie before Joel runs off to go get the guy. He's like, "All right, I'm gonna go around. You stay here." And then she's like, "You're gonna get hit." And he's like, he's like, "It's dark and he's got shit aim. Nobody's gonna hit me." And then she says, "Well, then he's gonna hit us." And then he asks, "Do you trust me?" And I love it. I don't know,
Yeah,
the little things like that.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I just gotta say that line was amazing.
yeah, I
"Do you trust me?" Mm,
also just want to
it's
say the sniper is shooting at Joel as he's running over to the building, and then he just like stops, like, he stops shooting at him, I imagine because he gets too close, but then what's the sniper guy thinking? Is he like, he must know he didn't hit him, right? And he sees that
yeah,
Joel is running towards his direction, and he stays up there and keeps shooting at Henry and Ellie and them.
yeah.
Kind of a weird choice. I mean, granted, he is an old man, and in the podcast, they talk about this old man is kinda it's like suicide by cop kinda thing, like, he's old and he's tired and he wants to be
Mhm.
done. And so
Damn.
maybe that there's some of that element in there as well. But the thing I wanted to talk about with Joel was when he walks in on the sniper and he gives him a chance to just to live. And that's not the Joel from the game at all. That is not the kind of Joel we ever even remotely see in the game.
Mhm.
Allowing somebody or giving somebody the chance to maybe live in a survive a situation, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I think this speaks more to where he's without saying spoilers, I think this speaks more to where Joel ends up at the end of this story because of what he's going to do there and looking at how hesitant he is to do certain things here, you know? I
Yeah.
I love because it's just gonna show so much of a stark change. I love it. I cannot wait to see it, and I hope that that change feels earned and that they showcase it really, really well. Because this right here, Pedro plays it so. Oh my god, he plays this scene so fantastically. He's like,
Yeah.
where he's like, just don't try anything, please. Just put the gun down or slide it over to me. He says, excuse me, and then stay up here for another hour. That's all you have to do. Please, please don't make me do this. Or
Yeah.
I don't know if he says that exactly, but he just says, "Please don't do it." Please,
Yeah.
dude. Ah, dude, Pedro.
It
Banger,
was it
banger.
was great, dude. I feel like he really embodied Joel in this episode, like really embodied Joel. And it's kind of funny because I was watching the next week's on trailer, and I know for a minute there, all I was hearing was Mando. Like all I could hear was the Mandalorian. But in that next week's on trailer, he like gets his like southern twang on, and
Yeah.
he sounds like Joel bad. And I feel like anytime he's with Gabriel Luna, he's just in his bag. I don't know what it is, but I feel
They
like
play off
every
each
time
other
he's
well.
yeah, I feel like he's just in his Joel mode when he's with him. But I feel like when he's not acting with him or when he's acting with like Ellie and stuff, the southern twang kind of goes away, and you can hear some more of like that Mando, like I can bring him in warm or I can bring him in cold, right? And
Man, boy.
but I feel like because in the first episode when they're having breakfast, I was like, oh yeah, this is Joel. Like this is
Yeah.
amazing.
This
But
is
if you
Joel
think
and
about
this
it,
is Tommy.
exactly. And if you think about it, since then it's been like, oh yeah, like he's embodying Joel amazing acting wise. Voice wise, I still hear some of the Mando, which is not to say it's terrible, because there are times where he deepens his voice and he can embody Joel, like this episode. But on that next week's on trailer, man, he sounded exactly like Joel. And I feel
Yeah.
like it's because he's with Gabriel Luna. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but yeah.
And that speaking of that, the little audio clip of them talking, I love that so much. They showed that in like a little promo um a couple weeks ago where he says, Tommy, those things that you judge me for, I did those things to keep us alive. I love
Yeah.
that line so much, bro. I cannot
Hell
wait.
yeah.
That whole conversation, I can't fucking wait to hear it, dude.
Hell
Um,
yeah, dude.
but on the whole thing, even talking a little bit more about that next week, I don't know why, but when he screams Tommy and he's like so happy to see him, that fills me up with warm, fuzzy feelings, bro. Because
Yeah.
it's never. I mean, obviously they're happy to see each other. They're brothers. They love each other and they hug each other. But it never really feels so heartwarming as like Joel, the way Pedro screams Tommy, like he's so happy to
Yeah.
see him alive, bro. I love that. I cannot wait for
Yeah.
next episode, bro. Oh my
Oh, it's gonna be so good.
god.
But anyways, we have more unfortunate matters on our hand to get through first.
Jeez, man.
And then so yeah, but like you said, I feel like that kind of makes sense though, because that cop guy, I would have, I mean, if I'm him, I would have been like, all right, here's the gun, take off. Like I'm not gonna say that I want to live. I want to keep my life.
Yeah,
But the fact that he still turns and points the gun at him, yeah, that man had made his mind up already.
yeah. Um, and I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean for the difference in character for Joel now and where he'll end up in our spoiler section because I really love that scene just for that reason alone. But continuing on, I love how they actually I guess not explained it, but how they actually got Kathleen and the rest of the hunters to this situation makes total sense that the sniper guy would have a walkie and he's going to radio in to have them come over.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah, keep going. I didn't have much
this
more to say on
whole
that.
this whole this whole sequence is actually really really cool. Reminds you of the game. Obviously, you're in the when you take down the sniper and you're up there as the sniper as Joel, and you have to shoot the guy who sticks his head out of the truck that has painted run on it, that has
Yeah.
run painted on the front or whatever. And essentially the same thing happens here, just Joel does it through the windshield. And then they
Yeah.
crash into the house all the same.
Bro,
Um,
that was such a good shot, man. Just like Ellie's about to die, he's just like, mm-mm, bah, and then last second just turns and that explosion, bro, looked
dude, yeah.
so good. It
Ellie,
looked so
like
good.
Ellie turning back trying to shoot too. Like, I don't know why that just like, all right, I don't know what you're hoping for here. Dude, and
It's like
also,
save your bullets.
yeah, I know, yeah, exactly. And it's such a scarce world, like she should be doing that. But she fell like 3 times during this whole thing, by the way. I mean, not during the truck thing specifically. She fell once during the truck thing and then also fell again when it came to the clickers and stuff. Like, bro, Ellie, we can't be doing this right now. We need to be absolutely perfect in every
Yeah.
aspect of the game. You got me tripping. This is wild. But I love watching it crash in the house, obviously, just like the game. And like you said, the explosion looks absolutely fantastic. Um, I also think Ellie freezes on the ground too long here when all the guys run up on her. But hey, whatever. They got to create tension.
She's she's 14. We'll let her
Yeah,
be.
that's fair. That's fair. 14-year-old girl. Can't expect too much. Also, the amount of dudes they brought, kind of crazy to me. They brought like the entire squad just for
Yeah.
these two.
Yeah, dude, they were rolling deep, and with
Yeah.
that whole like with that truck too,
Or I guess these four, excuse me.
like damn, dude.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
I guess Kathleen really doesn't care about like sending and wasting men for to find Henry, given how much she like wants him and wants him dead and stuff. So
Yeah, she didn't even bat an eye about the truck exploding, bro. Like,
yeah, she didn't care. Which none of them really cared or paid attention to it, which ultimately came back to bite them in the ass.
yeah. But then also this scene with Kathleen talking to Henry, Sam, and Ellie behind the car. Mostly she's just talking to Henry, but this scene also is a little bit of a reference to The Last of Us Part 2. I think to multiple characters within that game, and we'll talk about that in the spoiler section as well. Um, and they even mention in the podcast that this specific scene, they don't mention who they're talking about because I think they want people who even haven't played the games to listen to the podcast. They don't mention who it's a reference to, but they say, I think if you've played part 2, you know who. And so I think it alludes to both of these characters. And again, I'll talk about that later. But this is a great scene as well. Especially knowing where Kathleen ends up now. um, kids die all the time. And now a kid killed her ass. But this I like this scene a lot just because, it shows how much Henry wants to protect Sam. He'll even let him go off on not his own, but go off with other people while so he can get out alive while Henry makes the sacrifice play.
Yeah.
The emotion here from Lamar Johnson is really good too. He's just a fucking kid, and so I don't know. This whole thing was really this little scene right before the the horde comes out. I think is actually really well done.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that because Joel's up there with the sniper watching all of this happen and he sees all of this. He sees, Henry going out of his way to protect Sam, even going as far as to like sacrificing himself and telling Ellie to run off with him.
Yeah.
And so, again, just the implication, it's so good this episode.
Yep. And then Henry walks out, and Sam. I love how Sam tries to go out with him too, because it's just like instinctual for Sam to follow his brother, and Ellie has to stop him.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that just to reiterate what we talked about earlier of just him being deaf, especially because of a scene that's coming up, makes it hit even harder. But yeah, scenes like that where he's like, "Oh, I have to get up and follow him." She's like, "No, no, 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 no." Um, and even earlier, whenever he signs to Henry and he's like, "Are they going to help us?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're going to help us." Excuse me. He's like, "Yeah, they're going to help us get there safe." And Sam smiles. And he's like, "All right, cool." And then he looks up at Joel and he's like, "Right?" He's like, "Oh, well, now you have to, because you already told Sam."
Oh God, the fuck! I'm on the scene. Oh, they all come running out. Um, that was I thought it was really weird though. I will say that Kathleen was just gonna shoot him in the street. Um, for some reason I just imagined that she would want to do something worse to him. I guess I don't know for how
Yeah,
much of a manhunt she's putting on for she had put on for him. And I wouldn't think that she would have to. I would understand if like maybe she wants to shoot him so he can't get away, but you have literally like the entire town sitting there backing you. I doubt he would get away.
yeah,
But again, maybe I'm just misinterpreting her character and how she would want to handle the situation. And so it's just a little small thing anyway. But
yep,
the clickers and the stalkers and the runners and the bloater all running out of the damn sinkhole.
yeah,
Horrifying, bro, and they just never ends, bro. They just continuously come out throughout the entire sequence.
yeah. That was genuinely one of the most shocking things I have seen in a long time. Like, and specifically, or not even specifically, but like even more so in apocalypse and zombie movies or shows. Like, I can't remember the last time I've seen something besides, like I said, World War Z, where they're all like
Yeah,
piling on top of the wall, where I'm just sitting there like, oh my God. And it's horrifying, bro. It's genuinely horrifying. I
yeah,
sat there and I was like, no way. My jaw was dropped. I picked my phone up, I texted y'all, and I was like, excuse my language, I said, "Holy shit, this is the craziest thing I have ever fucking seen." It was so good, man.
Dude, seriously, and I love how it kinda also just shows, like, how bad this actually was, because they have an entire army, essentially, all armed to the teeth with, assault with ARs and whatnot,
Yeah.
and even they are getting swarmed by this entire incredibly fast group of infected.
Yeah, and it was so cool just seeing, like, all the hunters with their, like, ARs just just turning
Yeah.
around, the camera work, like, seeing, Perry just sitting there taking them all out. It was so cool, dude. So cool.
One thing I should mention, I made a TikTok about this a while back, the day after Christmas, actually, it was revealed that there was going to be, a new variant of infected in the show, and I think we all well, I think we're all to blame for this. We all sort of overhyped it. We all thought it was gonna be something really grand and really, really crazy, but in the podcast, they confirmed that it was in this episode, and it was the little girl, um,
Yeah.
Clicker was the new variant of infected, and I guess the variant being the fact that it's a kid, a little kid infected, um, which, I mean, that's our fault. We overhyped it. It's not on the creators of the show at all, and it was still a really creepy and eerie thing just watching her especially try to go after Ellie and her
Yeah.
tumbling and folding all different ways throughout in the inside the car. Crazy to watch. Um,
Yeah.
but we we were all expecting like a giant tendril monster or something like that. In the comments of my TikTok, there's some wild theories like a zombie elephant and that kind of
Oh my
thing. I was like,
gosh.
what the hell? I don't know.
That's
I don't
funny.
even know how they got there. Someone said zombie bear and that kind of thing. I don't know, but
Speaking of
I'm happy
bears,
with what we got.
Cocaine
Speaking
Bear,
of
be sure
bears.
to tune back into this podcast. I'm sure we'll be touching some movies, and we have a whole bunch coming up here
Oh yeah.
soon. Ant-Man Quantumania
Every week
coming
we're gonna
this
have a new
week.
movie. Yeah.
Yep, and then Cocaine Bear the
Starting
week
this week,
after.
yeah.
Yeah, and so while we're covering The Last of Us, we're gonna be covering Ant-Man Quantumania. We're probably gonna cover Cocaine Bear, John Wick, definitely Creed 3,
Creed 3,
which I'm
yeah.
seeing early. But,
Hey, maybe I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go
I
actually.
I
Let's
got
go.
invited to an early screening, so what do you
Yeah.
No, tickets
Let all of us casuals know about it.
special special tickets dropped early, and dropped $50 on them. Anyway, so we will be covering all that here soon. Have you seen the art of, like, if animals were infected by cordyceps? Have you
No,
seen that TikTok?
I
It's
haven't.
so cool. They do, like, dogs, and they do, like, bears, like, they even did one of a huge, like, gorilla, and it had,
What
like,
the
yeah, it's so crazy. It's not concept art, but it's, like, art someone did,
Yeah.
and it's, like, if cordyceps infected, animals, and, yeah, there's some pretty crazy things. I think there was a giraffe, which that's ironic, but I think there was a giraffe clicker. I think there was an ape. Dude, that ape one I couldn't get over because I was like, "Imagine an ape on cordyceps, bro." Like, an
That
ape
would I
infected
don't
by
know.
you're done. You're done.
No. Imagine after 10 years what that turns into after like bloaters and
Oh
such.
my god. Yeah, you're done for,
Hell
bro.
no. Um,
Anyways, but yeah, the bloaters and variants.
yeah. I thought you were gonna say speaking of bears and then talk about the bloater because the bloater is built like a gigantic bear. But something before we get to that, I want to talk about this random slow-mo sequence. Um in the
It was
episode,
so
I'm not quite sure. It's not even like good looking slow-mo
uh,
either.
it's so
It
funny, bro.
it's real choppy looking
I don't
slow-mo. It's just
I
like
just I love when when shows or movies do stuff like that. Like, it's like, it's obviously supposed to be corny, like an old little horror movie. Like, whenever they go,
yes.
ah, and it freezes on them like that in horror movies, and then just like zooms
Yeah.
in and stuff. I don't know. I love when they do it, but I was just like, sometimes I'm like, why? I think
Yeah,
even Moon
this
Knight
was
did it. Moon Knight
oh,
did it
did
where
it?
Steven is looking up at Khonshu, and he, like, screams, and then it freezes on him. It's like a freeze frame, and it freezes on him and lingers in and then cuts away, and it's so weird because
Oh,
it's like
really?
but that I can understand because it's like, "Oh, well, you're doing a little old cheesy, you know, horror style show." and it kind of fit in the show. It kind of looked pretty cool. This one, I was kind of like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But it was,
I don't
I liked it because I like
I don't
cheesy stuff
remember
like
anything
that.
from that terrible show, I'm sorry.
Uh,
But yeah, this one just felt so out of place. Like, I mean, it's a very small gripe with the episode as a whole, but it's just like I think maybe like it was filmed too quickly, Tommy's reaction to it, and they or sorry, Perry's reaction to it, and they really wanted to like
Tommy.
show his reaction to the because he's the first one to see the bloater or whatever. They
Yeah.
really wanted to show how he thought or what his sort of expression was as it was happening, and so maybe it was just happened too fast. I don't know, but oh my god, it looks gorgeous. It feels weird to say that it looks gorgeous, but it looks
Man.
absolutely gorgeous. Like,
Practical too, like, I know they used some
yeah,
CGI on that, but, like, the practical suit, oh,
yeah, that
yes.
practical picture that they released for audio
Yeah,
listeners,
dude.
don't worry, we don't have it up on screen, but like there's a practical image you can find of them working with the bloater, and it's it looks as creepy as it
So
does in the
good.
show.
Yeah. And then we get our famous finisher from the game done on the actor that plays Tommy himself. I
I
wouldn't be
love
surprised if he was like, "Bro, if y'all do it, let me be the one. Like, I
that.
wanna
Let
die that
me.
way." 'Cause it was so cool, dude.
I also think it's interesting the way they play the bloater this time. It doesn't look like you can hurt it with bullets at all. And
Yeah.
granted, bullets do very little damage to it in the game. You mostly want to rely on like bombs and Molotovs and stuff. But it doesn't like the bullets that Perry is shooting at this guy are just bouncing right off of him. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you can kill one, but it's going to take a lot more in the show universe than it would in the game. And I
Yeah.
kind of appreciate that in a way because like give the infection enough time, it's going to find a way to armor itself a bit better and protect itself more. Especially like because in the context of the game, clickers you can't kill them with one headshot. I mean, maybe you can on like the easiest mode. I'm not sure
Mhm.
because I don't play easy mode. I'm not a loser.
There you go.
But um, you have to shoot them twice in the head. But runners, you can shoot them once in the head. And stalkers, you can also shoot them once in the head. So it seems like progressively as they grow in the stages, like they get more armored up. And so it makes sense that like a bloater would be borderline and they do a good job in the game because like he is borderline like he is bullet spongy. But now in this show universe, it's not just bullet spongy. He just doesn't take bullets at all. He's a tank when it comes to the bullets, actually. I found it weird though that he's just like because the whole goal is to spread the infection. Like that's what the fungus wants to do, and he just
Yeah.
picks a dude up and slams him on the ground. It's like,
Dude,
all
he
right,
was going
spread it.
crazy, bro. That bloater was not messing around, and I
Yeah,
loved it. It was just, it was so good, dude. It was so good. Especially, I'm assuming so, especially for people that haven't played the game. Like, I
yeah.
could just imagine seeing that, being like, "What am I watching?" You know?
I saw somebody say that they play the death sound from the game as well as soon as Perry dies to the bloater, but
Interesting,
I'm listening to it now and I don't hear it at all.
huh? I
Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah,
I couldn't
I
tell
don't.
you.
I don't think they play. I remember the death sound. I know it all too well. If you ask Cam, especially when he's seen my live streams where I play the game. Um, I think that someone just wanted to hear that and didn't actually hear it. But
Yeah.
then we go back and we actually see this little girl clicker wearing a Blues Clues shirt. They talked about that in the podcast too because Craig Mazin made her wear a Blues Clues shirt just to add. He thinks it makes things more creepy when you add creepy and cute things together. Like there's two things that just shouldn't mesh well. And so, and he's
I
right.
mean,
He's right.
yeah, I I I liked the touch. I
No,
loved
yeah,
seeing
definitely.
her just, like, flipping around everywhere. It was it made it more chilling, you know? It made it way more chilling. Um, and so I could appreciate that. I could especially appreciate seeing her, go ham on Kathleen.
Yeah. One one thing I want to touch on from last week, I had talked about how I think that they might change Henry and Sam's outcome Didn't happen.
Yeah, no,
Didn't
we
happen
still
at
got
all.
the full pain of all of
I
it.
and I realized that it was gonna happen right here in this scene because it cuts over to Henry and Sam trapped under a car being
Yeah.
chased by clickers. Um, I just knew that that was the moment Sam got bit somewhere on his leg or whatever, and
Yeah.
so that's when I realized that they weren't deviating like I thought they would. But that I will mention in the podcast, they did say that they thought about leaving Henry alive. Because yeah,
Wow.
originally they said in the game originally Henry was going to survive, but then they changed it and made Henry die. But in the show they thought about maybe changing it back, but then they decided with like you mentioned earlier with them being the mirror of Joel and Ellie, um, with Sam dying and then Henry being so distraught that Sam died, A, and also B, he was the one to sort of finish Sam off. Um, Joel looks at that whole situation and it reminds him of Sarah and how he told himself he wasn't going to let this sort of thing happen
Uh,
to him again. And so
yeah.
they opted. I think that was the better choice for sure.
Wow, that's crazy, dude. I didn't
Yeah,
know that. Huh. How would Okay, let's pretend we're in a world where Henry's alive. What are we talking about right now?
that's the thing. Like, because so Sam still dies, and so I'm curious, especially with Henry already agreeing to continue to go with Joel and whatnot. I wonder if he would still do that. If after Sam died, if he would still want to go with Joel and Ellie to Jackson.
Yeah.
Um, I could totally see him not wanting to just go off on his own and try to find his own way. But at the same time, like there's hope that they'll find a. I don't think they think they're gonna find a community out there, but
Huh.
that's not a spoiler. Don't worry, that was in the next episode. So next
Uh
episode trailer.
yeah, man. As soon as Joel was like, well, I don't know how we're getting to Wyoming, probably walking, but and he cuts him off and he's like, yeah, we can
Yeah,
definitely do that. And it hurt the most when he looked at him and smiled and he said, I'll ask Sam in the morning. I was like, mm. And then
jeez.
before we get into like the big thing, bro, I want to talk about like Ellie and Sam's dialogue with each other.
I kind of don't want
That
to talk.
was
I'm crying.
yeah, I really don't even want to talk about it. That was one of the hardest things I've had to sit through. Just seeing him say, will you stay awake with me? Because he didn't want to turn and, presumably attack her in her sleep. Or he just wanted to kind of delay it as much as he could if he thought waking up because he's 8 years old, bro. He's 8 years old, and I can assume that him thinking staying up and not going to sleep will prevent him from turning. Um, and then Ellie rubbing her blood on him. I saw someone point out that she was able to fall asleep because she rubbed her blood on him, and that kind of gave her a sense of like
She thought,
comfort that she could be able to fall asleep.
yeah,
And it just hurts even more. And I can't wait till we get to the spoiler section for the game because like it just makes that moment like anyways and so that whole little dialogue, it was just like heart-wrenching,
yeah,
seeing her say she doesn't want to end up alone, and him asking, you know um something about, are you still
are
inside?
you? Yeah, first he asks, "Are you ever scared?" And she says, "I'm scared all the time." And then he's like, "Do you think?" Or no, she asked, "What are you scared of?" And he said, "I'm scared to be one of them," or something like that. He doesn't say that.
I'm
No,
scared of them. He said
I'm
I'm
yeah,
scared of them out there or
I'm
something like
scared
that.
of yeah. And then he asked, "Do you think they're still inside? The people are still inside."
Mm.
Um, that whole dude.
It was rough, man. It was very rough.
Cause
And
like
well, and real quick, like, and him being deaf and them having to do this on his little drawing pad. I don't know why, dude. That hits even more than in the game. Like that hit me harder. And then
especially the
him being
last one.
younger. Like, what are y'all doing to us, bro? What are
Yeah,
y'all
no.
doing to us?
Because then he looks up to Ellie, and then Ellie. Ellie knows that, and Ellie feels that, and Ellie wants to be like his sort of protector in a way. I
Yeah,
don't know. And tries to
it's
help him with the. Oh my god. That's
rough, bro.
my whole thing. I mean, there's lots of different facets to it. First of all, I want to mention like it was funny. Henry and Joel in the other room talking about endure and survive, and then Henry's like, "Well, that shit's redundant," because they're like, it's kind of like the same thing, I guess. Like,
And then they're just like
in,
laughing about it.
um, but then yeah, cut to them in the room, and the knowledge from the game.
The coppers are out once again. Uh-oh. Charlie's mute. Man, I can have
Okay,
some
there
fun
we
with
go.
this. Did they pass right by your window?
Yeah, yeah. I
I
live
saw
right
them
on
move.
like a busy street, so
That's
um
funny.
but um yeah, Ellie trying to save him with the blood is so, oh my god, man. This was one I think was one of my favorite changes of the entire episode and the entire game so far. Sam even showing Ellie that he's infected to begin with. I was so
Yeah.
shocked when he had him show her. And then with knowledge from the game, knowing that Ellie wants this journey to mean something. Uh, and so with her doing the whole blood thing, saying that her blood is medicine, she fully believes that. She fully wants that to be true. And so she gives him some blood just by rubbing it on him, which I mean,
Oh.
they can't really they don't have any needles or anything like that. But um you can tell I think even hold on, let me double check. When she wakes up, I think she says it worked. I think.
When they wake up,
Yeah, when she wakes up, I
I thought all she said was, "Hey," and she walks up to him.
all she says is hey. But beyond that though, um, even the fact that she says hey, because a lot of people were wondering in my comments on the review I made of it, like how did Sam not know that she was in the room? That she was how did Sam like not eat her when she was asleep or attack her? Um, and it kind of just goes to show that the people still are in there somewhat, I guess. At least with their
Yeah.
physical um all their physical attributes still remain because Sam's deaf, and even infected Sam is still deaf. And he was when he turned, he was sitting at the edge of the bed, looking the other way. So he was looking the other way, couldn't hear anything else. So he just didn't know Ellie was there. And then Ellie walks up to him and touches him, and then that's how he finally starts attacking her. That is like that adds another element, and it just speaks again to Sam being deaf in the show, and it's like it's a heartbreaking element too. And it's oh my god, man,
Yeah. Um, hats off to the actor, man. He did such an amazing job.
Kevon
So
Woodard,
good.
yeah,
Yeah, and Johnson, both of them. I almost said Lamar Jackson. Lamar Johnson. They both did so phenomenal in this episode. Really brought the tears out of everybody, especially me. Um, and then, we get the scene from the game. Henry takes the gun, puts it on himself, and Ellie's screech. Bella
dude. Oh
fucking
my god,
Ramsey, bro.
thank you for saying this.
Mm, just oh my god, bro. That sound she makes
Horrifying,
shatters me every time, bro.
seriously, dude,
It's such a good addition that she put in there, bro. I couldn't get
dude.
over it.
I seriously, there's an edit that I've been watching that has that scream in it, and it's like, I mean, it sounds demented, but it's just like I keep listening to it, and it just gets more heartbreaking every single time I hear it. It's fantastic the way she played that. Oh my god, dude. And
Yeah,
on
man.
top, dude, like it was just moment after moment, and then they go outside and they bury the bodies. Um, and right before, oh, dude, this made me start bawling, bro. When she puts the thing that Sam's been drawing with the entire or writing with the entire time, she puts it on their grave, and then she just walks away. And Joel looks down at it and says, "I'm sorry." I love it because you can interpret it so many different ways. Somebody interpreted it in a different way than I interpreted it in two ways. This person interpreted it. Oh my god,
Giggity,
interpreted
giggity, goo.
it in a different way. Um, that they said that she wrote "I'm sorry" because, or no, sorry. She said that Sam wrote "I'm sorry" because he knew he was going to turn.
Yeah,
Um, which I don't know if I agree with that. Maybe I guess like if he started like twitching or something and he wrote that, but
yeah,
I personally like it more with Ellie writing "I'm sorry" because it can mean I'm sorry that I gave you a false sense of hope and that my blood didn't work, and I'm sorry this happened to you at all.
yeah,
I'm sorry, like I didn't do more to protect you, because she falls into that sort of little protector role since Sam is 8 years old and she's 14.
yeah,
I don't know. There's lots of stuff with that. I'm sorry. And that's why it broke me, bro. It broke me to read that on the ground. And Joel just
yeah.
sits there and contemplates it as well.
Yeah, I just interpreted it as Ellie was apologizing to Sam, and that honestly hits harder than anything else. So that's how I took it as, because as soon as she puts it down, she walks away and she doesn't say a word to Joel besides which way's west and come on. And it just, oh, it's gonna be sad to see how that affects her, how that affects Joel, and how that affects both of them once they get to Jackson next episode.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a rough one. This, I mean, this episode, man, it went from, cool backstory, cool building that we haven't seen in the game, and then it went to character building, character bonding, and then to the craziest zombie scene I have ever seen in my life, to the saddest post-apocalyptic scene I have ever seen in my entire life. It was so good, man. It was so good. I don't see how anybody could watch this episode and think otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm honestly still even struggling to see how people watch this episode and don't have it as their favorite. Like, I know you had said it's like your second, or you're like it's like close with your first.
It's first or second for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, me, I don't know. It's clear first for me. I absolutely adored this episode. The implications, dude, the roller coaster of the emotions, the stuff that we set up for the future, and the character building. It was all just perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect, perfect.
It's a toss up between episode 3 and this one for me. Episode 3, just like as a standalone story,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely fantastic. But
yeah.
again, this one, in terms of The Last of Us and everything that it does for this overarching story, 10 out of 10
I
episode.
mean,
Seriously.
we're comparing tens right now, right?
Yeah.
Like we're comparing A plus episodes at this point, so it really don't
Yeah.
matter. But like, I think one, three, and five are all honestly 10 out of 10s. Like in my opinion, bro, I think they are all 10 out of 10s. I won't apologize for rating something as high as I do, so I'm definitely not gonna apologize for that. Like shit,
Yeah.
I can't find one thing wrong with it. I cannot explain how much I love this episode. And that's not to say anything bad about 2 and 4, because I mean those are right, right underneath or right there with it. Like this whole season has been phenomenal,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's only going to keep going up from here.
Yeah. Season 2 is going to be even better, guys. Just wait and see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Aiden doesn't believe it.
Wow.
He's a Last of Us Part 2 hater, but that's okay. Um,
Yeah, I am.
we're about to end the non-spoiler section for the rest of the story of the show as well as the story of both games. So if you are stepping off here, thank you guys so much for listening. Again, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and send us out to all these new faces so we can all talk about the things that we love. If you're on a podcast listening platform of any kind, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., please drop us a rating. You know we're good for it. We just entertained your ears for a full hour and a half, hour 45
No,
minutes.
actually, way less. Yeah, because we had to dip off for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So
Probably
like
about an
hour
hour 20.
hour 15, yeah, that's
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, we're good for that rating. So yeah, thank you guys so much. We'll be back later this week with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Super excited for that.
So,
Super, super excited. And then obviously The Last of Us next week. Last of Us episode 6. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Those of you who will not be sticking around for the spoiler section, and adios.
peace.
No more spoiler free section. Firstly, I wanted to talk about the first Kathleen section where she talks about her brother would want her to forgive Henry for what Henry
Yeah.
did. And I think this is sort of a reference to potentially Abby, because I don't think Joel would want Ellie to forgive Abby. I think
Yeah.
if Joel were in that situation, Joel would have gone all the way through with it and killed Abby in the end.
Yeah.
But with Abby's father, not to say that Jerry is like this saint or anything like that, but I feel like Kathleen and most of what Kathleen was saying was a mirror for Abby in the
Yeah.
future and everything that she lost because of Joel and the way she loses herself to the pursuit of revenge
Yeah.
with Joel and then subsequently having to try to come back from that. But Kathleen is the version of Abby that doesn't get to finish it but still actually dies like on the path of that vengeance. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it's really, really well done in that regard. And also, again, that scene where she's talking to Henry about you think that um, your you think that Sam's life is the only life that matters, kind of thing, is what she says. And so I imagine that, like with, she never says this in the games or anything, but Abby would imagine the same thing when it comes to Joel. She's talking to Joel. You think Ellie's life is the only life that fucking matters because
Yeah.
he literally threw away the world essentially to save her. And so
Yeah.
I thought it was a great reference and callback and nod to part two. And I think they're just in general doing a great job talking and building up to a potential, not potential anymore, but to season two characters and character arcs and how they're going to follow through with all of that. I think they're doing a fantastic job with that so far.
Yeah, I love all this the building and the setting up they're doing. Like I said earlier, everything with like revenge and those revenge arcs and people like Kathleen losing themselves along the way just because they're so hell bent on this, and getting this goal of I was done wrongly by this one person. I don't care what anyone says. I'm not gonna stop until I get it. And both Abby and Ellie do that and end up losing their way. They lose a lot of people, they lose people they love, and they lose themselves. And so, with what that person said about like them already building up to that in this season, like they didn't in the game supposedly. With them already building up to that in this season, yeah, they're definitely already planting those seeds, and I love it so much. It just I love how we're just always able to catch it and just like know, and this is
Yeah.
like, ah, there it is,
And yeah, it's moments like this that, because like I mentioned earlier, how I wish I hadn't played the games. There's lots of moments where I wish I hadn't played the games because I want to experience this for like the genuine first time, like without thinking like, oh, Sam and Henry are gonna die in the end. Um, I will say, like watching it with my sister who hasn't played it, like I'm living vicariously through her. She was so shocked when Sam pulled up his leg and whatnot,
Yeah.
showing that he was infected. But it's moments like this that make me happy that I played the game.
Yeah.
Because like I get to catch these cool little nods and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Oh, my fault.
no. I mean, only thing I was gonna add on was, but I mean, even with that being said, it's a cool thing, but also I think it's cooler to watch the actual character development rather than like the nods themselves. Like what they're doing with Ellie. They're very much, and I've said this before, but they're very much building Ellie with part two Ellie in mind,
Yeah.
thinking about where Ellie goes as a character. And I think that's a fantastic idea. And I think they're
Yeah.
doing a fantastic job at doing it like that. And so uh, I don't know. That kind of thing is what makes me love that I played the games. And I feel like I'm being rewarded for it almost.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice seeing them take all the like creative freedoms that they want. And like they're like, all right, we already know how this ends up. Why not just start building up to it the way we want to? We basically get a chance to redo these things and like go back in time and fix things or add things on. And so it's
Mhm.
fun to see that along, week to week with everybody else. I was just gonna say, I had actually watched this with my parents. I watched the ending of it. So I came back in my room and I went back out whenever I knew that it was about to end. And so I was watching it with them and they my parents were shocked when they found out he was infected. And then whenever Ellie put the blood on him, my dad was like, "Oh my god, there's no way. I swear if this works, like there's no way." And I was like, "Oh, y'all just wait." And then everything happened and my mom was over there crying. It was so cool to see. It was so cool to see just all of that play out through somebody else's eyes,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Like is her blood magic?" It's like, "No, unfortunately it isn't, dude." Like, so yeah, it's very cool. I still am glad I played the game and I get to experience this essentially for a second time, just
Yeah.
with like acting, live action acting.
Yeah. Uh, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Joel in that moment with the guy upstairs, because, like I said, that is not something that we would see video game Joel do. Video game Joel is very hardened, very violent. He will kill whoever is in his way, no matter what. If you even look at him the wrong way, it feels like he'll beat the shit out of you. But
Yeah,
this version of Joel, he is still sort of like that, and like we've seen his violent tendencies, but we saw sort of last episode when Ellie asked him if he's killed innocent people. He's like, "Please don't make me answer." He didn't say this, but he gave her a look of like, "Please don't make me answer that. Like, you know the answer to that question. Please don't make me say it." And so
yeah,
taking that version of Joel and watching him in this episode where he's begging this guy in a way um to not try to do what he knows he wants to try to do, because Joel doesn't want to hurt the guy. He doesn't want to kill the guy. Um, he just wants to. He wants him to live, and he wants them to be able to go on their way. And so, watching this Joel and knowing how violent he's going to be at the end of the show is, I cannot wait to see that turn. To see, because he's not willing to do that right now. He's not willing
yeah,
to be violent when he doesn't have to be. And so how they're going to show how Ellie is the reason he has to be. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see that all over again.
yeah,
That is what I'm looking forward to most. And I feel like that's going to show show through a lot better than it does in the game, just because Joel is already a violent person in the game. Like
yeah,
him mowing through all the people in the hospital is like, oh, this is just another day for Joel, you know? But now it's going to be like, oh, he had this in him the whole time, but he just didn't want to do it. Like he doesn't want to do it when he doesn't have to. And I love that. I love that so much.
yeah. And so what else was it? Oh, so yeah, everything with Henry And Joel, I would love to see that come back later. Um, Henry telling Joel basically, "Am I a bad guy for doing a bad thing in order to protect my brother?" Well, we know Joel's about to do a bad thing
Hmm.
to protect someone he loves. Does that make him a bad guy? You know, and so it's already starting to hold that mirror up to your face. I mean, all these people, the Fireflies or the Fedra, they were torturing, you know, other stuff. They were doing really horrible things,
Yeah,
and Henry traded in the leader of the group that was trying to stand up to it, in order to protect his little brother.
yeah,
You
and
know,
yeah.
so you can go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I like it a lot as well, just because we see Henry's torturing himself for what he did. Um, he's saying like, "Yeah, I am a bad guy because I did the bad thing," and we're gonna see the sort of difference within that. I'm sure. I don't know if we'll see it this season. Might be next season. I'm only thinking because I'm thinking of the conversation at the beginning of The Last of Us Part Two, where Joel is telling Tommy what he did, and Joel is very adamant about the fact that he made the right decision. And so, with that in mind, I'm thinking, well, Henry's sitting here and he's like, I know I did a bad thing. I'm a bad guy for what I did, but I needed to do it. And versus Joel's idea of it all is going to be, it may have been a bad thing, or maybe he won't even view it as a bad thing. And even
Yeah,
if he does view it as a bad thing, he doesn't care. He doesn't think he's a bad guy for it. He's still the hero in his eyes. And that's I don't know. I like that. I love the difference that is going to be shown in their characters. Not that it matters too much because Henry's gone now, but still it'll be cool to see that little difference.
yeah, I'm very excited for that, and yeah, I just loved that line from Henry, because it's essentially not the same thing. You know, they're both two completely different situations, but in general, though they basically did the same thing. You know, they did something really bad to protect someone that they loved and they wanted to keep around, and they're tortured with it, and they feel like they're bad people because of it. And for them to kind of show that to Joel already, it was so good to see, and it just made me so excited for like the finale, dude, and for that last episode.
Seriously, bro, I can't wait. Oh my. Well, I can wait because, like, dude, we only have 4 episodes left. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
We've already made it through the halfway point. That's wild. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I had to mention when it comes to the potential future spoiler stuff. So,
yeah. Me as well.
all right. Yeah, overall, again, 10 out of 10 episode. I think. I'm still juggling. I have to rewatch both three and this one. I think I might do like a sort of binge rewatch right now. Like I kind of want to watch all the episodes that have released so far,
Nice.
and then I might come back with my general placing of it all. But yeah, any final thoughts from you?
No, I'm just about good.
Okay.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania later this week. Cocaine Bear next week. The Last of Us upcoming this week, and then obviously the rest of the season. Creed 3 soon. Creed 3 soon. And yeah, lots of movies coming out. John
Yeah.
Wick, John Mid 4 coming out.
Shazam. We're gonna do Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods.
Yeah, unfortunately we are. Uh,
Damn. That's crazy. Bro's
I'll give it
riding
a chance.
hard
I'll
for
give it a
Flash,
chance.
but he hates Shazam. That's crazy.
I
Um,
don't know.
I
Anyways,
mean, they weren't the. I haven't watched the newest trailer. Since I heard that it shows too much, I've been
oh,
staying away
I
from
haven't
it.
paid attention to it either.
Okay, okay, good.
I don't like, I don't hate Shazam. I just was never really that interested in it. So I still haven't seen the first one. Um, yeah, I just like, I really don't care for it. But, you know, I've heard good things about it. I've heard a lot of good things about it actually. So I'll probably put my ego aside and watch it before the second one comes
Before the
out.
second one, because you're gonna watch the second one, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, of course I am. I was just messing with you. Yeah, of course I'm watching the second
Can't
one.
say of course. This motherfucker.
Well, because sometimes you don't get sarcasm. So.
Oh
Wait,
my god, there's no way.
real quick, where does this movie stand in terms of James Gunn's universe? Did they
We,
mention anything about that?
we don't know yet. He said everything else is going to be Elseworld stuff, and I imagine this might be one of the Elseworld stuff. But at the same time, the Shazam stuff has always been so disconnected from everything else going on that it could easily just they could just say like, "Oh, this takes place here." Like we haven't even
Huh.
seen Superman's face in. We saw his
Ugh.
body, sure, but
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. All right. Yeah. Because that's one of the things I brought up in my Flash trailer reaction. I was like, it's interesting that James Gunn started this whole new universe, and Flash was one of the movies that he really wanted to keep, and say like, no, we're going to keep this one. We're not going to scrap it, especially with everything about Ezra Miller. That he still wanted to keep this one, and apparently it tested really, really good with audiences, with early audiences.
apparently,
So
yeah.
it looks like it's going to be a banger. But it was real interesting to me why he decided that one he was going to keep. Maybe because it doesn't really matter what
Yeah,
happens
because
after.
it's gonna reset stuff. So I think
Yeah,
maybe that might be partially why, but I don't know.
interesting. Well,
We'll
yeah,
see.
we got a whole bunch of movies lined up. You can check back here for our podcast episodes, and you could check on Aiden H Talks here on YouTube for my reviews. My it's basically our episodes just munched down into like 7 minutes or so.
Yeah,
If you want to check that out, go ahead.
go watch his lame ass Flash trailer reaction, overhyping it like everybody else is. Um,
Hater.
Thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Again, hit the subscribe button. Actually, I don't want to reiterate all that. You guys have heard it 2 times already. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you guys seriously. Like Aiden said, we're gonna be back later this week with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Super excited. I'm an MCU nerd. He's an MCU nerd, a little bit lesser than me, but that's okay.
Yeah. No, no, no. Don't go
Adios.
there. No, no, no. We're not ending it there.